I'm going to show you how to level up your rhythm chops in 3 steps. Playing basic shuffle and boogie patterns can get repetitive after a while, and when you hit that point where those parts are so easy that it gets a little stale, that's a sign that you need to inject some cool tricks to keep things interesting. And the first step is to use guitar techniques. It's earth-shattering, I know, but we spend so much time developing our hammer-ons, pull-offs, bends, all that stuff, that we might as well use them. And we can inject those little techniques into the tried and true rhythm patterns to make them really come to life. Take this basic boogie. And we can punch this up in many ways, but we're going to do 2 things here. We're going to add a couple of rhythmic chord stabs on the offbeats, and instead of picking through everything, we're going to use some hammer-ons and pull-offs, and we might get something that sounds like this. We start this off with a 1-2 punch, the open 6th string, and then an upstroke through the top 2 strings. And you want to play that sharply so we really get that chord stab feeling there. And you could even just scratch through them. It's really more about the rhythm in this case. Then we hop back into the more traditional boogie line, but we are going to use our hammer-ons and pull-offs here. We're going to hammer up from the 3rd fret to the 4th, that's G to G sharp, and then to E. Then we follow that up with a pull-off from the C sharp down to the B, then the open 6th string. Before finally, down on the top 2 strings, I've got a bar at the 2nd fret, and then an upstroke again. And that upstroke kind of gives us that same sort of rhythmic punch that we're looking for. We put it together, this is what you get. Cool. Now I realize that that part is challenging for some, and if you're not quite ready for it, then here's something that will help. There's always a way to simplify your guitar parts. There's a lot of middle ground between that basic boogie and the example, and of course you could take that example a lot further too. So if that example is out of reach for you, then here are 2 things to keep in mind. 1, keep reaching. That keeps you moving forward, keeps you getting better. And 2, find ways to simplify while keeping the structure and the vibe alive. Here's an example of paring things down a little bit, but still playing it cool. We've got 2 A notes before we do our triplet move with that hammer-on in there. Basically the same thing that we did over the E chord in the first example. We're hammering up from the 3rd to the 4th and then moving up a string at the 2nd fret. Once we're there, we're coming up to the 4th fret. We're going to do a really quick blues bend and release. What I mean by blues bend there is it's a microtonal bend. I'm not bending to pitch here, a half step, and certainly not a full step up. It's just a real quick bend and release that is microtonal. It's kind of in between the frets. Back to the A, back to the E, and then we're simply going to connect to the next measure with a hammer-on from the 3rd fret up to the 4th. The second step is to use a few chord tricks, and if you know a few ways to play, say, an E chord around the neck, great, we're going to use them. If not, then it's probably time to learn a few different ways to play the common chords, and you can leverage those variations to create interesting rhythm parts. This next example uses 2 chord shapes for the B chord and 2 chord shapes for the A chord. Same chord, 2 shapes. It's really fun to play and it gets you moving around the neck. Let's take a look. All right, there's a lot going on here. We're going to slide into this B7 chord here, and it's important to bar at the 4th fret because we're very quickly going to start embellishing this chord with a downstroke through the chord tone and then pick up on that 1st string to play the note under the bar. right? And then we're going to do something similar, but in a different position on the fretboard. We're going to move from this shape of a B7 up here to this one. And we're not going to play all of that. We're just going to focus really on the top 3 strings. So bar at the 7th fret, hammer up to the 6th fret, and then this is where we get that cool little melodic movement happening, that embellishment happening. I'm going to put my ring finger down on the 9th fret of the 2nd string for the down, and then lift it up for the upstroke. Then we do all of that again, but over the A chord, which means that everything we just did just shifts down 2 frets. Now the part moves from the G shape of each chord to the E shape. And those are cage terms. If you need to catch up on that, there's a video linked in the description that will help. But back to the part here, we could strum through these shapes, and that would actually be a really good way to simplify this idea, by the way. But notice that we didn't just do that. We added some embellishments around each chord shape, and that really helps to fill out the sound. And yeah, the part is a little bit busy, but you don't need to be busy to make a statement. Here's a cool chord trick that's really simple. We start with this A7 shape and work our way down the neck to the open position A chord. We're going to play out of this A7. I've got the G on the 4th string, the C sharp on the 3rd, and the E on the 2nd string. We start by playing the bass, that's the open 5th string, and then an upstroke through those chord tones, and then downstroke. And then pump the bass again and drop that shape down. Keep everything the same as far as your finger grouping there, but just drop it down a fret. So bass and then play the chord, then do it again. Bass, drop down, play the chord. Then we've got an upstroke through our open position A. And you don't have to hit the 5th string with that. You're actually going to hit it at the top of the next measure. So here's what we have. Step number 3 is to leverage one of the most common threads in blues, chromatics. And chromatic just simply means moving up or down by a half step or 1 fret on the guitar at a time. And you can use chromatics to build momentum in the blues, especially when climbing up the neck toward a chord change. That's what we're going to do in this example that connects the E chord to the A chord. At its heart, we're simply climbing up the 6th string, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, and 4th fret on our way to the 5th fret. Actually, we're not going to play the 5th fret. We're going to end up switching to the open A note on the 5th string. But you can hear melodically what's happening. We're really building toward that chord change. But of course, we're putting some more picking into this. So let's take a look. We start out just with 2 open 6 string notes, and then I'm going to put this chord shape down on the fretboard. 2nd fret, 6th string, skip over the 5th string, 2nd fret, 4th string, and then the 1st fret on the 3rd string. I'm going to pick through that with a triplet rhythm, and then just move it up and do the same thing. Right? And then ultimately we're going to that chord change. So we get one more time. 1 and 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. And you can simplify this by ignoring the triplet picking and just climbing up on the 6th string. That still works and builds that momentum. But this next example takes a slightly different view of the chromatic climb. It's busy as well, and we're still climbing, but not into a chord change. As it happens, we're going to change from the B chord to the A chord. This would be in bars 9 and 10 of a 12-bar blues. But listen to how we use chromatics here. There are a lot of chromatics in these 3 measures. First, we're going to connect the E to the B. And we're going to do so by moving chromatically from the G sharp, got a 7th chord shape here, up to the A and up to the B flat, and then finally at the B7. Now what we're doing is that same triplet picking once we get to our G sharp. And I'm going to pick the 6th string, 4th string, 3rd string, right? Just hold down the chord and move up the neck. So we've got 1 and 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1. Now, of course, you could simplify that and just play the notes along the 6th string. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, right? You get the same job done, but we're filling it out here with those triplets. Once we're there, we play that bass note. We need to know that we've arrived at that B7, and then we're going to chop through the top 3 strings, hold under the chord, before settling into this. Well, not really settling at all. We're going to slide up with these harmonized 6. And what's happening here is I've got the 3rd string 9th fret with my ring finger right there, and then my little finger playing on the 1st string, same fret. Now I'm muting out the 2nd string so that I can strike through all 3 and not hear the 2nd string and slide up to the 11th fret. It's a really sweet sound. Then here's some chromatic movement. We're going to move down to the 10th and back to the 9th. So we kind of do this sort of rubber band thing where we stretch up and then come back to home with this idea. But we do something a little bit different with our chromatics once we move chords down to the A. So that's the first move. We're going to bar at the 5th fret and hammer up for that classic sound there. And that leaves these same 2 fingers, the ring finger and the pinky finger, to do their same shape at the 3rd string and the 1st string. But here we are truly climbing again. We want to leave this and build some tension. But once we're here, we're going to do another little strum through that. Keep in mind the 2nd string is muted. Then we slip into train whistle here, the 8th fret and the 7th fret on strings 2 and 1, and then the open strings. So when you put all of that together, really listen out for the chromatics. We've got a lot of them, and this is what we've got. And remember that these examples are just that. They're examples. The big idea here is for you to use guitar techniques, chord tricks, chromatics in your own ways. And these examples should help get you started. And yeah, some of them are a bit flashy, but flash isn't the only thing that you can do to level up your rhythm skills. Check out this video right here for 2 sneaky rhythm tricks that can add even more to your rhythm chops. I'll see you over there. Until then, practice smart and play on.